welcome back to another edition of the Morning View. What's going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Welcome back to another edition of the Morning View. And this morning, we've got to talk about Harry Maguire. Yes, there are rumours linking the now former Manchester United captain with a move to Saudi, Pro League to, a Saudi PIF side once his contract is up next summer. Of course, with this transfer window now closed, many people have turned their eyes to the January transfer window as well as next summer. And next summer is just when Harry Maguire's contract is up. With these rumours swirling, suggesting that Maguire could possibly be open to a move to Saudi next summer, it remains to answer the question and ask it too. What do we do with Harry Maguire? What decision is there to be made regarding him and his Manchester United future? He did have an option on his existing contract, the same contract that he signed when he transferred to the club way back when. When was that? 2019, I think it was, something around that time. He had a really long contract, didn't he? Or as Ruben Amorim would say, a really, really long contract. That contract is coming up. He's on close to £200,000 a week. I think it's in and around that £190,000 mark. What do United do? What do they do with that? Do they try and figure out an arrangement whereby he stays, but on lesser terms? Because he's not a starting centre-back for Manchester United anymore. We play with 3 centre-backs. He is part, though, of the leadership team at Manchester United, the leadership group, in which he has captained the Manchester United side. Whilst Bruno's been permanent captain, we have seen Maguire actually wear the armband on quite a few occasions. So do you keep him around because of his leadership qualities? But what does that look like? How much is that going to cost Manchester United? What would you do with Harry Maguire? Would you let him leave on a free? Would you say, hey, we want you to stay, but it's got to be on terms that suit us? What would you do? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section below. This is the Morning View, where we discuss Manchester United news, rumours, debates, everything else in between. And as Dan Luciano says right there, be sure to hit that like button. Yes, if you haven't already, click the like button and be sure to subscribe. Already, we're getting a lot of opinion in. Macca says we can't re-sign Maguire. So sorry, he has been great, but it's time to step up. This isn't a charity. Kristen says right there, give him a 1-year extension. Maradona says, let him leave. Can't offer anything anymore. Already gets. This is interesting. Big up Stephanie Griffith, one of our moderators, says, good morning, Owen. Good morning. I can see people in the chat as well. All Elite, one of our moderators, says, won't lie, I'd keep Maguire on a short-term contract on reduced wages. Say what you want about him, but he's a top professional and never say shit in the media like some other players. Need role models. This is interesting. Tabrez says, it's time to go. Uncle says he can still leave. Mykonos case still pending. It's mad, isn't it? It's mad that whole situation, legal situation, still hasn't even been resolved, has it? There's still, occasionally, once every kind of 6 months, 9 months, maybe once in a year, you hear, there's the thing's still coming up and... the case is still ongoing, or it's been delayed to another point. I mean, and they show images of Maguire when he was actually in Greece at the time, many a year ago, and he looks completely different, doesn't he? He looks completely different because it's so long ago. But, there's pros and cons of both. So we're going to get into that this morning. As mentioned, click the like button and be sure to subscribe. We're also going to be talking about how a possible move for Bournemouth's Semenyo actually fell apart in the summer. And according to a report, it was, a real push from Jason Wilcox and others since March. They were even having a situation where Ruben Amorim actually had dinner or had a meal with Semenyo, but then because he found out what Manchester United were prepared to offer Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, he went, no thanks, and decided to stay at Bournemouth instead. We'll talk about that story and anything else that happens whilst we're live too. So if anything does break, we will discuss it. Amanol with the first super chat of the day says, Owen, 20 kg hate coins on Onana leaving this summer. Now, I may be naive here. You know me. I've lived a sheltered life. What is the difference? Can one of the reckless delegates tell me the difference between KG hate coins and just general Kev coins? Is this just different currency? Is that what it is? How many Kev coins to a KG hate coin is there? Is there some kind of currency? Well, for every Kev coin, there is 10 KG hate coins. Is that different? Or am I just... Because I think there needs to be some kind of explanation on this. I'm leaning towards there probably isn't one. There probably isn't. Oh, it's a currency just for the ops, Joe Blackman says. Right. Every day's a school day. We're always learning. Speaking of always learning, folks, people have accused me. They say, Owen, you're a flip-flop. You're negative. Brown envelopes from Ineos. You won't admit that you're wrong. You're just a shit stirrer, this, that, and the other. I'll be first to admit that I got it wrong. Yeah, got it wrong, me. I made a mistake. And look, maybe I went too soon. And these kind of conversations I think are good to have. We're all family here. We're all together. And yeah, maybe I went too soon. Maybe I got things wrong. Maybe I just got, I don't know, ahead of myself. And yeah, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Now, you might be thinking I'm talking about Ruben Amorim. I'm not. I'm talking about final one standing. Yes, we can see it right there. Now, I can't win the big prize. I can't win, was it 500,000? Yes, I get that. And there are other people that are in a similar boat to me. Okay? There are other people who are in a similar boat to me where they got knocked out. Last week, I went with Spurs. I said they would beat Bournemouth at home. And if you're not familiar with what it is, you've got to be the final one standing, right? You can pick a Premier League team. They have to win. You go through. But once you pick them once, you're out. That's it. And I'm out. But that still doesn't mean I can't win. You can go into other leagues. And you can still win big. £200,000. That will still do. That will still do me. Now, I still got till next weekend to lock in the picks. But I thought for a second, you know what, Owen? Let's have a look. Let's have a discussion with the UV community here. And we'll put in an early pick. An early pick. We've got time to change it until next week. It's totally fine. But an early pick. This is international break. We can kind of discuss this together. Now, as I said, last time I went with Tottenham. Never again. The problem is you would think, look at that. Tottenham going to West Ham. West Ham are shocking at the moment. Shocking. But I don't know. Man, do I go anywhere near the Manchester derby? Probably not. You would think Liverpool at Burnley. They've won 3 out of 3 so far. Surely they go to Burnley and they don't lose. But what's mad about Liverpool is they haven't been great, have they? They haven't been great, but they've still been winning games. And there's something in me that feels like it's just totally wrong to pick Liverpool, doesn't it? It's kind of gross. I mean... I've got, thing is, I'm off the back of a loss anyway. I'm gonna have to go Liverpool, but I've got time. I can change that. It's fine. My pick's been submitted. There, it's done. But I've got plenty of time. Plenty of time there. Chelsea is a banker, says Show. Chelsea away at Brentford. The thing is, there's still a lot of unknown about Brentford because they did win, didn't they? There's a still unknown. I've got time to change it. I've got time to change that one. I've got time to change it. But, we'll revisit that next week. But I thought some of you guys might have been thinking I was talking about something else. I wasn't. But you can get involved too, even if you're out of winning the big one, winning the... was it £500,000? Yes. £500,000. Even if you're out, you can still win big. All you've got to do is have William Hill app to play. Scan the QR code, hit the link in the video description to get involved. It's also pinned in the chat. But remember, folks, 18 plus, UK and Ireland only. Please gamble responsibly. Terms and conditions apply, and full terms are in the link below. Right, let's talk about Harry Maguire. Let's talk about some of the speculation surrounding him and a possible move to Saudi. Now, the report in general, a bit mixed. It's probably bullshit. It's probably, it's the Sun. But it said that Harry Maguire had been approached by Saudi Pro League clubs. The player said he will spend the final year of his contract at Manchester United, which I never thought was up for discussion. I don't think there was any debate about Harry Maguire is going to leave in the remaining time of the Saudi Pro League window, right? But I think it does open up a discussion about Maguire's future, doesn't it? It does open up a discussion about Maguire's future and about what Manchester United do, I think, with Harry Maguire. I've mentioned many a time that for me, I would say, right, Maguire, this is your last season. They trigger the option. I wasn't even, up on the whole, we should maybe trigger the option kind of thing. I wasn't even really on that. I was like, well, we could have let him go at the end of his contract at the end of last season. The club decided in January, or as Robbie would say, January, to trigger the option for an extra year. Looking on how the transfer window played out, was that probably a wise idea? Probably was. In retrospect, right? I mean, we left it to the last day of the window to get in a goalkeeper, which we're still not even sure. I think he's the number one, but he's a young guy. Isn't he going to play against Manchester City in the derby? Is that a bit too much too soon for him? We're not really sure. So with all of that craziness that was happening at the end of the window, with the goalkeeper and with outgoings too, we're talking about Anthony, Højlund, Garnacho, all being done on the last couple of days of the window. Maybe Manchester United thought, you know what, just getting an extra defender in to replace Maguire. Also, Lindelof's leaving on a free. Also, Johnny Evans is retiring. I think maybe they just thought that's just too much for us. That's too much. That's too much for us, to do. We need to focus on getting the attack sorted. Maybe get a goalkeeper. We haven't even discussed midfielder yet. So I think probably in retrospect, probably the right decision to be like, right, let's just park that and we can figure that out over the winter perhaps or next summer. But as far as whether or not he stays long term, I think there would have to be a lot of concessions on Harry Maguire's side, right? Surely there would have to be concessions on his side. He can't stay on the wage that he's on. Reportedly, close to £200,000 a week. Now, maybe that's gone down a little bit with not being in the Champions League for a couple of seasons, but he's still one of the highest earners at the club. And that doesn't reflect his position in the team. It might reflect his position of seniority. He's one of the more experienced players at the club now. He's one of the older players at the club now. He is in, the leadership group, if you will. We saw Maguire. Did Maguire captain the team when, if he coached the team, it might explain it, against Grimsby? He was the captain that day, wasn't he? I think. I've got to go back and watch, see the stats from this game. Man United Grimsby. I think he was captain that day. Yeah, he started. I think he was. And look, he scored. he scored the late equalizer in that game too, right? It's a weird one with Maguire because since he had the captaincy taken off of him, it almost feels like he's become a better leader. He's become someone that if the captaincy was up for debate again, you'd be like, oh, maybe go to Maguire. Whereas when he did have the captain's armband for all that time, it was there are better options at the club and he's not really a leader. He's not leading through his performances and what have you. And since he's got the captaincy taken off of him, you got good leadership figure, Harry Maguire. And look, he has a very good mentality. My goodness me, he's had to put up and go through a lot of shit, hasn't he, throughout his Man United career, off the pitch, and obviously all of the scrutiny that comes with it, and stuff with bomb threats to his house, and it's just insanity. And to be able to keep coming back over and over is absolutely a credit to himself. But I just feel like, when things have come to a bit of a natural conclusion, I do feel like still they probably have, unless he took a pretty drastic pay cut, you would have to think. If he took a pretty drastic pay cut, and went down to, I mean, let me know in the chat. Yeah, let me know in the chat what kind of concessions do you think he would have to make if he were to stay at Manchester United? Because there has to be an acceptance. What he's currently on, he can't continue on that. He's not the starting centre backs at United. He's sort of the backup central defender, isn't he? You know, De Ligt's got that role at the moment, and deservedly so. De Ligt's been very good this season. He's also younger, and he's a leader-like figure as well. He was captain of Ajax when he was 18. So he's someone that, you know, if Bruno leaves next summer, which is a possibility, you might be looking at someone like De Ligt to be the next Manchester United captain, right? So he's not the starting centre back. So he'd have to be a rotation option, a bench option. You can't be on 190k, close to 200. What are you looking at there? All Elite says 90. Tabs is going 90. 80, 120. Show says minimum 30% wage cut. Court stars 110, 130. That to me is, again, high. That to me is high. I'd be looking at. I think it would have to be in and around that 100 sort of ballpark, which is why I sort of look at this and go, that's quite unlikely then. I mean, we're effectively going, if he's going to stay, he's going to have to take a close to like 50% pay cut. You know, obviously you could maybe make it incentivized, go, look, this is your base salary. If you play, you're going to get a little bit more for appearances and bonuses, but he may already have that baked into his contract already, by the way. So that is his base salary is close to 190,000, allegedly. You would think that when he plays and scores and what have you, he probably gets more based on that. So this is why I say I think it's reached a bit of a natural conclusion, because I don't see a resolution whereby Maguire goes, yep, all right, I'll take a 40, 50% pay cut and just be a backup player, when he can still go elsewhere and still earn maybe not as much as he's currently on at the moment. I don't know if he's going to go anywhere unless he did go to Saudi, but I don't think he's going to, go anywhere and earn close to 190, 200,000 pound a week. I mean, he's 32 years old, 33 in March. When his contract ends, he'll be 33. I don't think that's going to happen, but he could go to a Premier League club and earn more than he could as a backup player at Manchester United, and he would be playing more regularly. If Harry Maguire goes to another Premier League side, a mid-table or lower bottom half Premier League side, he would probably be playing week in and week out and could earn, I don't know, like 130, 140, 150,000 pound a week. He might, you never know. He's older at that point. It'll be interesting to see what he does in terms of an international future. But he might have a look at it and go, oh, yeah, maybe I'll stick around. Where is the next Euros? Euros 28, isn't it? I thought so. It's in the UK, isn't it? Yeah, it's co-hosted by England, Scotland, Wales, and the Republic of Ireland. So a lot of those English players, actually, even Maguire, even though he'll be older by that point, even though he might be like, maybe I can make the squad. Maybe I can make the squad still at that point. Maybe I can make it 2 years' time. But that's where I'll retire from international football, maybe football in general. Is that last Euros and then England, playing in England? Maybe I can do something like that, right? So, I think he leaves. I really think that he leaves, because unless it's really not about, and this is maybe fair for him, it's really not about the money. I'll stick at United and be, on 90k a week, maybe. That's what I'll stick around for that. I'm happy to be in and around it. I don't want to go anywhere else. I don't want to be playing that much, but I'm happy just to be involved in the leadership situation. Maybe after this World Cup, he calls it quits anyway, international, because I'm not even looking that far forward, so I'm happy to stay. So it's an interesting one. If you're watching after the fact, let me know what you think in the comment section below. A couple of super chats here. Sanshit says, take Harry as mental performance coach. And like Mike says, English players like Maguire don't go Saudi. I don't know about that. they do. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Jordan Henderson went there and then left pretty quickly. Got Ivan Toney playing in Saudi at the moment, although he was in a press conference complaining about the treatment of his team, wasn't he, in comparison to Cristiano Ronaldo's team, and saying that they were given the better pitches and what have you. And I think Tony's team went on to win that cup, I think, in the end. But yeah, so you can't rule out anything. Money talks. Money talks. If Saudi put in an offer on the table to Harry Maguire that was like generational wealth for a couple of years at this stage of his career, like I said, when he's finishing up this contract, he'll be 33 years old. If someone does put on the table, hey, you can earn £400,000 a week, which we as United fans would be like, why would you give that to Harry Maguire? But money talks. Money talks with these kind of situations, right? So I don't think you can rule out anything, but I think that I don't think he stays at United. I don't see how that one would happen. We got close to 800 people watching, folks, this morning, which is fantastic for an international break. We're at 170 likes. I said we can get to 200, 250, 300. You guys know what to do. So that's the latest when it comes to Harry Maguire. Let us know your thoughts on that one. I wanted to talk about this story about Antoine Semenyo. This is really interesting about, I suppose, maybe what could have been and what was maybe attempted to be done, whether or not you believe this story, of course, because this is always kind of the trouble when trying to figure these things out, isn't it? So this comes from Duncan Castles, who said that since March, Antoine Semenyo was aggressively targeted by Manchester United. Sounds serious, doesn't it? He was aggressively targeted by Manchester United. Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox had several conversations with Bournemouth. Semenyo had even agreed personal terms with Manchester United, and Ruben Amorim had a meal with the player in London at the end of the season. Semenyo then discovered the salary he agreed at Manchester United was 70% less than what they were prepared to pay Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo. Bournemouth used this and convinced him to stay and sign a contract until 2030. Right? That's the story. Let me know in the chat what you think about this. Do you believe that? Do you think that's a real thing? Or do you think that this is bullshit? I will be honest. I'm getting a whiff. I'm getting a whiff. I was with it. Yeah. I was with it for a little bit. Until they started doing the 70%. The 70%. Because I thought to myself, I did the Dom Roberts.
No, wait a minute. Wait.
So he was offered 70% less than Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha. Okay. Bryan Mbeumo, according to reports, again, whether this is accurate or not, you never know. But according to reports, Bryan Mbeumo at Manchester United is on a wage of £150,000 a week, which is pretty good going by Man United, by the way. Gone are the days, seemingly, where we just throw these players onto ginormous contracts where we're like, well, that's going to backfire. £150,000 a week. So if he was offered 70% of that, this would be a very, very, very small contract. And just so we're aware, people like, let's say, Patrick Dorgu have come in, right? And Patrick Dorgu's on £40,000 a week. Okay? There aren't many players. There aren't many players that Manchester United have offered very small contracts to. I know we're trying to sort of, trim the wage budget here, but let's be honest, yeah. If Manchester United had signed Antoine Semenyo, it'd have probably been on a similar kind of salary to even like you're looking at Joshua Zirkzee on £105,000 a week. It'd be probably close to that kind of number. So as soon as he started going, well, it was 70% what they were offering Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, I went, I don't really believe those numbers. I don't believe those numbers at all. Man United are trying to get the wage bill under control, but there's still this acceptance of, you come to United, you earn, in and around. Like if we have a look, actually, Semenyo, Bournemouth Capology, and again, Capology's taken a bit of a hit recently. Let's have a look at what his new contract is until 2030. Antoine Semenyo, he went to £75,000 a week. £75,000 a week. That was his new contract. I don't know what his old one was. So £75,000 a week. So he's currently earning around what Terrell Malacia earns, and Diogo Dalot. So the question is, so if Bournemouth offered more, then we would have offered him what, like 60K a week, maybe less. Maybe we say we're going to put you on Patrick Dorgu wages, £40,000 a week. I just don't really see that. I don't. I just don't really see that whole thing would have been a thing. Because remember as well the price that we were quoted for Semenyo, right? Semenyo, Man United. I swear we were quoted like a large transfer fee as well. So yeah, I just that story just doesn't. It just doesn't feel, It doesn't feel it, does it? It just doesn't. It doesn't pass the smell test. Supart says, I remember the Semenyo links before the transfer window started. Yeah, I think there are absolutely links, but I think this idea that and then he found out under the cover of darkness that Manchester United, they were going to offer 70% of what they were going to pay Brian Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha. So I said, no, I'll stay away and blah, blah, blah. Wouldn't you negotiate? Wouldn't you try and, I don't know. So that just doesn't pass the smell test, that one for me. And also the other part of it is I'm very happy with what we got. Antoine Semenyo, he's really good. I'm a big fan of him, actually. I think he's a really good player. And if we had signed him, I would have been happy with that. Don't get me wrong. But I look at Brian Mbeumo, the amount of goals he scored in the Premier League last season. He's already got a couple of goals for Manchester United so far in this campaign. And I go, good value for money. Mateus Cunha. Again, last season, you want to look at the top 5 attacking players in the Premier League in terms of, goals or assists or what have you. Brian Mbeumo and Mateus Cunha were in that category. They were in that category and they were attainable. They were at clubs that we could buy from, and they're good signings. So, yeah. And also with Semenyo, he's more of a wide player, isn't he? So I'm not sure where he would necessarily fit under Ruben Amorim. Would he be wing back? Would we be looking at him as a wing back? Perhaps I don't know. It just seems a bit odd. So yeah, I don't really buy this one, I must say. I don't really buy it. Yeah, what are you guys saying? Now says, I believe it, probably offered 50 to 60K. But then wouldn't it be one of those ones where even if, like I say, it was true and he took 15K a week more at Bournemouth, if you had a bit about you, surely you would be like, all right, but I'm playing for Man United, even if it's a bit less than what Bournemouth are offering me to stay, it's worth it to go there because in the long term, I'm going to make considerably more. I don't really see it. I don't really see that one. Peg says, I do rate Semen Beast. Good for my fancy Premier League team. What else are people saying here in the chat? Preem says Semenyo would probably get 120K. Ridwan says Semenyo definitely makes more than Dorgu at Bournemouth now. According to that report, he does, yeah. So we're probably going to hear more of this, aren't we? We're probably going to hear more of these over this international break because, frankly, I think a lot of journalists had a very different international break planned when it comes to coverage of Manchester United, don't they? I think a lot of people had a lot of drafts. I'm not going to say deleted. I think just maybe not shared because I think they can probably swap out certain dates, certain fixtures, and what have you. But there was definitely a direction that a lot of people thought this international break was going to go in, and that hasn't happened. And I think there's probably some very upset and frustrated members of the media because of it. And in fact, we still tried to see some get away with it after that game against Burnley. And the reaction to it was so negative that even they had to kind of take these things down. I want to see if this is actually still up. Did you guys see an article that was written by Jim White? Obviously, transfer deadline day guru, Jim White. I forget who it was for. Was it for the Telegraph or the Guardian? Jim White, and it was about Benjamin Sheshko. Basically, there was a sort of an opinion piece, a column written by Jim White, and it came out right after the Burnley game, like within 30 minutes, 45 minutes of us beating Burnley 3-2. And I screen grabbed it at the time because it was just the biggest bunch of bullshit. The Independent, was it, Johnny? It was the Telegraph. This was it. I took a screen grab. Let me get this up on the screen for you guys, because it was mad. It really was. Share this one instead. There you go, with what you call it in the thingy. Right, let's get this up on the screen. It was this. It said, it's early days, but Manchester United's £74 million Slovenian looks more Wout Weghorst than Ruud van Nistelrooy, writes Jim White. That was the article that was written. And that came out maybe an hour or two after the game against Burnley. Now, that got so much negative reaction, that got so much negative response, that the post was actually deleted. Now, the article itself actually is still up. It's still up, but the post in question got deleted. The title of it says, Jim White, Benjamin Sheshko must cope with unique pressure of being Man United's big money striker. The subheading says, it's early days, but the sluggish start made by the £74 million Slovenian is drawing unflattering comparisons. I'm looking at that subheading. It's early days, but the sluggish start made by the £74 million Slovenian is drawing unflattering comparisons. The person drawing the comparisons is you. don't try and pretend like, oh, this is a well-said thing. Everyone's calling him Wout Weghorst. No, they're not. You are. You're calling him Wout Weghorst. It's only you that's doing it. You can't only just be like, oh, have you seen what people are calling him? What people? Me. Well, then actually, so it's what you're calling him, not people. You're using it the wrong way around. And sluggish start. He's not even started a Premier League game. What are we talking about here? It's been a very sluggish start. You can't even say sluggish start when someone hasn't started. It's very sluggish how you've started today. How? Well, you're still asleep. Well, the day hasn't fucking started for me then, has it? I'm not even out of bed. You got to be like, you're very sluggish. Well, I'm not even awake. What are we talking about here? So it just goes to show, I think that was the plan. I think it's very obvious that was the plan for this international break, wasn't it? The plan was crisis, drama for Manchester United in this international break. And unfortunately for the media, they haven't got it. Now, what Jim White's saying about Benjamin Sheshko, it might turn out to be true. And maybe he'll be like, see, I told you so. Benjamin Sheshko, he is a very expensive Wout Weghorst. But at the moment, we don't know that. We don't know that. He hasn't started any games. And what they're saying from the club is that he's not fit enough to be starting games at the moment. When he started his game against Grimsby, and to be fair, I didn't even know this. I didn't even know that he hadn't played a full 90 minutes since April for RB Leipzig. He had a couple of 45 minutes in pre-season. And then obviously, I suppose, with all of the links of him going away, first to Arsenal and then to us, Newcastle as well. Maybe he didn't have the pre-season that he was intended for him to have. And now he's going away on international duty with Slovenia. He's going to be playing some football, which will be good for him. And then post-international break, then you go. Because look, there's always an expectation. There's always going to be an expectation of when you spent that amount of money on a player. And it's also a player that it's not as if, with Benjamin Sheshko, that He wasn't known. He's a younger guy, but he has been someone that is known for the last, what, 3 years or so. Yeah, his name's been coming up every transfer window, linking him to a lot of big clubs, scoring goals in the Bundesliga. So there's going to be an element of expectation on him. Of course, there's going to be pressure on him. He plays for Manchester United. It's inevitable that there's going to be pressure on any signing. And but there's going to be a period of time when you've got to bed in. The best thing for Sheshko, and this is why I actually really do rate the comments made by Louis Saha yesterday. We covered this on yesterday's morning show. We got the attention of people because Saha said that Sheshko could struggle, and he probably was going to struggle in the Premier League this season for United. And that got an immediate reaction of, see, ex-players and pundits, they're putting unnecessary pressure on the players, and they're going to fail. And, they failed before they've even done anything, blah, 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 blah. And then once you actually heard what Saha said, he was actually kind of right by saying, well, he'll struggle in the sense that Manchester United haven't got a midfielder. And without having that kind of person in there, maybe Man United are going to create less chances, and that might be good for Sheshko. But then meanwhile, Bruno Fernandes, regardless of what you think of him, whether he's a hindrance to the team, whether he's a positive for the team, whether he should go, whether he should stay, etc., 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 Bruno Fernandes already this season, I think, has created the most chances in the Prem. Because that's what Bruno Fernandes does. Even when Bruno's playing shit and he's frustrating and he's always spamming. He's always spamming that, those creating chances or what have you. So he'll do it. He'll create those chances. You've got Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha in behind. The more that they're playing together and with their teammates, hopefully the better that they'll become in that. And in the case of Mbeumo, certainly started already very well, scoring a couple of goals. Matheus Cunha goes in and out of games, but when he's on, he's really on. Hopefully his injury's not too bad. So I think the thing what Jim White's saying there, obviously, is completely ludicrous. He's judging a player for a sluggish start when he hasn't even started any games. If we're talking about 10, 15 games in, and the majority of them are starts, then all right, you can go, look, it's been a bit of a slow start for him. Look at Rasmus Højlund, right? Rasmus Højlund in his first season, he didn't score his first Premier League goal till Boxing Day against Aston Villa, wasn't it? Now, he had scored goals in the Champions League at that point. He had a very good campaign in the Champions League. If anything, it was the only good thing about that Champions League campaign under Erik ten Hag. The rest of it was shit, with Andre Onana throwing the ball in the back of the net every 5 minutes. But Rasmus Højlund had a good Champions League campaign. And so much so that kind of got traded on for a little bit of Champions League Højlund. But with Sheshko, if he can score the next time he plays for United, we've already done what Højlund couldn't do, which was score before Christmas, right? So it's still really, really, really early days with Benjamin Sheshko. But I think it does go to show, maybe this is where some people do struggle, because it's just an overabundance of information out there, is we have to, I think as a Man United fan, you have to have like a higher degree of media literacy than most other football fans. Because when you're a Man United fan and you see an article about your club, our club, when you see it and you read it, you have to look at the headline, go, okay, that's the headline. Then you have to do this. Are there any ulterior motives here? Why are they saying this? Are they saying this because it is legitimately the truth and they're reporting it? Or are they saying this because they don't like Manchester United, so it's just skewed the other way, and they're just saying this for the sake of saying it? And then we have this kind of constant back and forth with ourselves of, oh, but that part's probably true, but that part definitely isn't true. And then largely when it's these opinion pieces like the one I brought up on the screen a minute ago, then it usually is, it's not really said from a good place, is it? I mean, I don't know if he has done one yet, but usually around this period of time, this is kind of an annual tradition for him. Jamie Carragher usually writes an article saying how Manchester United are going to fail, and how so-and-so, whoever's in charge, or certain players need to go. And has he done it yet? because he does it every year around this period of time. And the worst thing is, right, with it a lot of the time. So last year he did it about Eric Ten Hag, and I remember seeing one with, I think it was Robbie Fowler. It was right after we had won the FA Cup, and Robbie Fowler wrote something. He was writing a column, and he basically said something to the effect of, Eric Ten Hag will be one of the first managers to go this season. It doesn't matter. He's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And the worst thing is, it turns out to be right. It turns out to be right, and it turns out to be true. And then you have this weird thing of you go, did they get that right? Or is a broken clock just right twice a day? You know what I mean? It's a bit like sometimes when Graham Souness would say things about Manchester United, and they would turn out to be like right, but you go, but I don't think you said that with this feeling of you actually believed that was going to happen. You said that because you don't like Manchester United. You know what I mean? So it's like that day when we lost 7-0 to Liverpool. And before the match, he was like, Liverpool, they're going to smash Manchester United today. They're going to batter them. They're going to absolutely smash them. They're going to batter them. And then they beat us 7-0. And he was like, see, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I just had a feeling today, and that's what happened. And you go, but did you really know it? I don't think you really knew that. I think you just said it for the sake of saying it, and then it turned out to come true, And this is when it goes into the media literacy stuff, where you go, I don't know. I don't feel like it's coming from a positive place. Show says it's a bit of both. I think it is. I think it is a bit of both. I do think there is something in sometimes with these pundits or people in the media, because they don't have, emotional ties to Manchester United, because they're not fans of the club, they can look at things more objectively than we can. A lot because it's too emotional for us, and we're too invested, and we care so much that it does skew our thinking sometimes, and it does skew our analysis on things. We've all got biases, don't we? And we're all Manchester United fans, so we're always going to have this sort of bias when we try and look at some of these issues at the club or on players and anything like that. And sometimes it does take to listen to someone that is completely removed from it, and they can see things more objectively. The problem is people like Jamie Carragher or what have you, they're not completely removed. They're connected to Manchester United in the form that they used to play for our most bitter of rivals. And whilst they were playing, they were miserable because Manchester United used to win all the time. So they're not looking at it objectively. They're not removed from the situation. The antithesis, like if your enemy is looking at you, you don't go, well, you're being really objective here because you hate me. You'd be like, no, you're probably being quite biased actually because you hate me. So they're not really the people to listen to, because they're not really removed. As Steffi Jenks says there in the chat, they aren't really removed. It's an interesting one when it comes to these kind of reports. But this is international break. And we've got to stay vigilant for this kind of stuff. There will continue to be these kind of articles written. There will continue to be, there'll continue to be these kind of discussions, or it's a term. I learned a term. I was watching a documentary the other day, and it was about I forget what it actually was. It shows how much of an impact it made, but it was some kind of documentary about these two people in the media. What was it? It was, who was Ryan Reynolds' wife? Blake Lively. It was about her, and she'd done this film with this guy, and they were both suing each other. It was a whole thing. And I was learning about how these things are played out in the press. And I was learning about, PR and public relations and all this kind of stuff. And I learned the term AstroTurfing. I don't know if you guys have heard of, obviously we know what AstroTurf is, but in terms of the media and these kind of stories, I learned the term AstroTurfing. And AstroTurfing is when these people like plant a story, and then it looks like it's a natural thing that's just coming up out of the general conversation between people, and it looks like it's real. It looks like real grass, but actually it's fake. It's AstroTurfing, and sometimes that happens with Manchester United. That happens with United in the sense that these kind of stories or these kind of narratives get put out there about certain players, about wage demands, about fallouts, about certain chaos and what have you. And then because they sort of, just appear and they look real, they look like a legitimate discussion point, people discuss them even further. And then by that point, you can't really tell what's real and what isn't. And when I was watching this documentary and I saw that term and it was explained, I went, I think I've seen that a few times. I think I've seen that with stories about United or opinions that are generated about certain players. And I thought that's a great example of the Sheshko one. That's already the AstroTurf story there, is that Benjamin Sheshko is struggling and he hasn't settled very well at Manchester United and he's having a difficult start at Manchester United. That's not a real story. That's not true. That's objectively false. He hasn't started his first few games because he's getting up to match fitness. But I don't see that as struggling. He's struggling. Oh, he took the last. This is the other one, because he took that penalty late on. The manager doesn't fancy him. The manager doesn't like him. The manager doesn't like Benjamin Sheshko. He's not favoured. So now in the future, when Sheshko does start, if that game's a bad game, while the manager doesn't rate him, they're kind of just woven in. And I think we need to be careful of those ones. So always keep vigilant when it comes to those AstroTurf stories. Don't say you don't learn anything on these morning shows. We've got over 900 people watching. And if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe. Rick's Tassie says, where are you from, Owen? Your accent, seen that. My accent, mate, is all over the place. It really is. I've lived down south. I've lived up north. I've lived in the Midlands. I've lived all over the place. So my accent at this point, I don't even know. I think it's quite unique to myself, actually. And this is the mad thing too, is I never used to think I had an accent. I never used to think I had one. And then when I went to university, people then used to say to me, look, you do have an accent. And I was like, oh, I never thought that. I never thought that I had that kind of accent, but apparently I do. I try not to think about it too much, because if I think about it too much, I'll develop a complex, which is not good for someone who talks a lot. And this is also the other part, as Show mentions there. I've also got my my Jamaican heritage, which of course, I'm very proud of. You know what I mean?
I make them know, say what a Jamaican you talk to.
That's me talking there. That's not even the back. I loaded those in. They're actually sound clips of myself. This is another one. This is me doing an impression of Chris Eubank.
Rastafari, lick him up, Rastaf, lick him up.
That was me. That's actually me. I recorded that because there was some copyright issues. I couldn't get the actual clip. So that's me. So yeah.
Rastafari.
Yep. Got them all. So kind of that's where the accent comes from. It's kind of all over the place. I have to play it down for this show, because got to be professional, got to be profesh. So don't really get into it that much, really, sort of heritage that much. Kind of a rare thing. So as Dan Luciano says, you know what I mean? It's just,
you better watch out, because we have come for you.
If there's any mocking of my accent or my heritage. So good. So there you go, guys. That's the morning view for you this morning. If you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe. What's on tap for the rest of the day? Trinity. We've got another episode of the Trinity. I think it's episode 78. Getting closer and closer to episode 100 of that. It'll be myself, KG that comedian, Mr. That Comedian, will be joining us. I hope so. I haven't heard otherwise. And also we'll have the regular appearance from James on the Trinity later. So I think at this point, maybe it's James and myself maybe have the most appearances on the Trinity, actually. But it's going to be KG, myself, and James at 4 p.m. live here on the channel. So be sure to join us then. We'll have some nice international break discussions. And we'll and see how they're both feeling. And maybe at that point, actually, I can get KG to actually explain to me what the difference is between Kev coins and, was it KG hate coins? Is that the two the what they're called moving forward? Something? Yeah, maybe he can explain that to me, because I'm curious to know. So yes. And also, Trafford Talk will be back next week. We couldn't do it yesterday, but we will back next Thursday. Thursday, big things happen on Thursday. So there you go. Anyway, guys, have a good morning, and I'll be back later on. I'm out of here. Peace.